You're back with us at Monza for ITV's coverage of the 13th race in this year's championship, the Italian Grand Prix. It's always a Ferrari celebration, but there are thousands of very worried fans around Monza at the moment. Let's join Martin Brundle and Murray Walker. Afternoon, Murray.
Afternoon, Jim. Well, Maranello, which is where Ferrari are, is going to be struggling this afternoon for it to be a Ferrari celebration. Eddie Irvine 8th on the grid, 1 point behind Mika Häkkinen in the World Championship. Mika Salo, Michael Schumacher's substitute, 6th on the grid in the Ferrari, ahead of Eddie Irvine. And Eddie has frankly said, my one hope is to get a really good start. But ahead of him, of course, he's got Mika Häkkinen and David Coulthard, both of whom start very quickly and are on the best side of the track, the left-hand side of the grid as you look down on it. Heinz-Harald Frentzen sandwiched between them in the Jordan. And Eddie Irvine and Ferrari were showing all outward signs of some disarray just before the end of the quarter-of-an-hour period between 1:30 and 1:45, when they have to be on the grid, because Eddie Irvine was in and out of his garage no less than 3 times. First of all, to get into another car and try with a different setup, then back in the race car, and he only got on the track 1.5 minutes before the pit lane closed at 1:45 local time. But he's down there on the grid now. You can see it. The silver car in the foreground, of course, is that of Mika Häkkinen. The yellow one, a car's length behind him, is that of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. And watch him, because the Jordans have got a big fuel tank, and they are going to be able to stay out longer than most of the other cars. And perhaps a good prophecy might be that Heinz-Harald Frentzen will stay out and put in some really quick laps and try and build up a lead, assuming that they've all got through the first corner. Because the first corner is the left-right, 4 corners actually. The Rettifilo, the artificial chicane, which was put in the tremendously long and fast straight at Monza out of the Parabolica some years ago. And it's like Monaco in particular here, because there can often be a pile-up, as there is at the Belgian Grand Prix. Last year, for instance, remember that one, at the Rettifilo. So keep your fingers crossed and watch for them going over the grass and concrete part of the exit of the first corner. In fact, it's going to be a real scramble there.
It does tend to be, because you arrive at quite an enormous speed. It's quite a long way from the start line down to that first corner. Just to put a bit more meat on the bones, because it is a significant part of this race, and you're talking about the fuel tanks. The teams keep very much secret the amount of fuel they can get in the tank, because since about 95, when this race was won with a very, very long first stint, it's been quite traditional here to try and do that. And teams don't want the others to know how far they can really go, but occasionally it's given away, like Heinz-Harald Frentzen won the French Grand Prix this year with an incredibly long final stint, didn't have to come in for fuel. Salo did 45 laps around Hungary, and that gives you more information. So I think that's how we know that Jordan has got a biggish fuel tank on it and could possibly go further. And what's the significance of that? Well, the tyre degradation around here is very, very small. The tyres fall away very little in the course of a lap. And so you're always going to be faster towards the end of your first stint than the early part of your second stint. Therefore, you can make up time the longer you can stay out, and it could win you the race, because overtaking here, traditionally amongst the first few, where the pace is so close, has been too difficult. So that's what it's all about, and it's sort of settling in for the long haul for some of these drivers. But I think Häkkinen's got to get away, get out of the first corner, get 10 or 12 seconds into the lead to make sure he cancels Frentzen's fuel tank advantage. And of course, Frentzen is sitting on the line even heavier, probably with slightly less power than the 2 McLarens. So in theory at least, the 2 McLarens should give him a run for his money down to the first corner. And in recent Grand Prix, Frentzen has lost an average of 1.7 places on each start. So Frentzen's not known for having electric starts in recent races. So that is going to be critical for the outcome of this afternoon's event.
true enough, and the track is hot. It's hotter than it's been all weekend. It's coming up to 32 degrees now as we ride with Alex Zanardi, fourth on the grid. David Coulthard's McLaren in front of him as they exit the Rettifilio and go up to the Grand Curve. And that is a 180 mile-an-hour corner in race condition. Now up to the Rogia, which is the second chicane after the Rettifilio, the left. And this is where Schumacher passed Häkkinen last year to take the lead. And now from the Rogia up to the famous two Lesmo bends. And when you exit them, you're onto the really quick stuff, interrupted by the Ascari bends.
Yes, certainly a spectacular performance from Zanardi. Disappointed I wasn't able to speak to him on the line. We ran out of time, but typical Alex, he says it's ladies first, so he wasn't about to give up an interview. And he's such a nice guy, and there's this theory that nice guys don't win, and he's certainly been struggling up until Spa, showed some progress there, and now been quite exceptional around this circuit. So Zanardi very much looking forward to this race, especially being Italian, of course.
Now you see that Mika Häkkinen at the front is slowing things down. Remember, behind him there are 21 cars, and he's got to make sure that when he gets into his grid starting position, first of all, as he will do, because he's starting from pole position, there isn't a long delay behind him which would result in him being in danger of cooking his clutch. And the usual dodging and weaving, and you can see in the background Salo, followed by Eddie Irvine, and they're sandwiching the white Stewart of Rubens Barrichello, who incidentally was fastest in the warm-up this morning. And the pole position lap was absolutely incredible. It's probably the best pole position lap that in 21 of them Mika Häkkinen has ever done. And he went round at a speed of 156 miles an hour, slightly more than that. And that was the fastest lap that had ever been done at Monza, irrespective of the cars in the circuit's present configuration. So the changes to slow the cars down are not slowing them down very much. Indeed, they're not slowing them down at Monza as Mika Häkkinen leads up to the grid.
Such a great proportion of the lap is in a straight line. That's an average speed of 156 miles an hour, of course, so the narrower cars have tended to be faster down the straight, and that's why I think places like Monza and Hockenheim, they haven't managed to slow them down as much.
Alex Zanardi peels off to the left to form up behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen. On his left, you see David Coulthard. And coming up into position in the white Stewart is Rubens Barrichello, 53-lap race.
Barrichello fastest in the warm-up this morning. I can't really throw any common sense onto that one, Murray. I mean, I don't believe he'd be running on low fuel. I think it was just hooked up well, wasn't it?
Yeah, Johnny Herbert was fifth fastest. He gets it right on Sunday morning. Sadly, he didn't get it right in qualifying. Who's going to get it right now? Are they all going to get through the Rettifilio? Those four corners which make up the chicane. 53 laps, and it is ready for Monza. Steady for Monza. Go for Monza. Häkkinen gets away well.
Frentzen a poor start.
Zanardi up into second place. Magnificent start. David Coulthard dropping back a bit now. This is the tricky bit. And off goes the Williams of Ralf Schumacher. Off go the two arrows, but I think they're not getting an advantage. Oh, and there's a contact there between the arrows and the Minardi, but it seems to me that they are all on their way, with Mika Häkkinen leading and Frentzen going up into second position, despite what we think is a heavy fuel load. So Frentzen second, Zanardi is third in the Williams, so he has improved a place. David Coulthard down to... Oh, and off goes, that is Genet, Marc Genet, off in the Minardi. And just look at the way the Williams are going, because Ralf Schumacher and Eddie Irvine and Salo's coming up. David Coulthard has been pushed right back to 8th position, coming through on the inside now.
Coulthard's got the speed into Ascari. It's bumpy up the inside, but does he make it stick? He gets one of them, but Ralf Schumacher passed him across the grass street at the first corner and should be penalised. Remember, you mentioned two people contacting Murray. I think one of them's in the wall and the other is cruising back to the pits. But and where's Coulthard in that picture? Coulthard must have had some kind of problem in Ascari. He's fallen back behind Salo again, and Irvine making his way past Hill into Parabolica.
So this is not the sort of start what we expected, except that Hakkinen leads, Frentzen is second, then it's the two Williams of Zanardi and Ralf Schumacher. They've both made up a place. Eddie Irvine is up, but it's Mika Salo behind them in 5th position. There he is. Now, where is Irvine? 6, 7, he's in 8th position ahead of David Hill, and off goes one of the Benettons. Which one is it? Let's look through the cloud. It's Alex Wurtz. It's Fisichella, my apologies. Fisichella out of the race already.
And he came in way too deep on the brakes. Looked like he had some kind of technical problem, actually, because just speared off to the right and didn't appear to be slowing down at all. So we're seeing on the computer car 2 off and continued at 10. So I think Coulthard must have run wide, having tried to go up the inside of the Williams into the Ascari. Hence he ended up behind Salo one more time. That's how, hopefully we'll get a replay of that. But I think Coulthard had a problem coming into this corner.
Well, it's looking good for Mika Hakkinen. He's already nearly 1.5 seconds ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. And it's looking very poor indeed for David Coulthard, because he's down in 6th position as De La Rosa in the arrows comes into the pit lane. Let's have a look at this replay. There are the 2 arrows and the Minardi of Genet. Genet going off sideways. De La Rosa goes through. Genet is out of the race. There is Frentzen second, Schumacher third, 4th. Zanardi ahead of them, and Eddie Irvine is still in 8th position, but the fastest man on the track right now is Rubens Barrichello in the Stewart. He's in 7th position behind David Coulthard, as the Minardi, with extremely efficient marshalling, is removed from the circuit. And we're starting to get a build-up now.
That was actually Denitz's Sauber that we saw being hauled away down at turn 1 as well. So already Fisichella and Denitz out at the first corner with just 2 laps into the race.
Four retirements, in fact. Deniz, Fisichella, De La Rosa is in the pit and unlikely to come out again, I think, and Marc Genet has retired.
Here's the start again. Coulthard gets away well and then gets squeezed. Look, Hakkinen a supreme start, and up comes Zanardi into 2nd place immediately. And I don't know what happens now when they get into turn 1, and Frentzen cuts across, and now watch. Well, maybe Ralf took a place. I don't think so. He actually went into the corner ahead of Coulthard when he looked at that. Then they start tripping over each other behind. Nothing too serious. Here it is one more time from a different angle. Easy for Hakkinen. Wheels locking up in the background. And there's Ralf going across the shortcut. He may just get away with that one.
Well, Mika Hakkinen has yet again demonstrated how it pays to be in pole position, and if you get a good start, you're away. But the Williams are going magnificently, and Mika Salo in 5th position, as I said, has made up a place as we look down the grid.
Irvine in clear air, but 1.2 seconds behind championship rival Mika Hakkinen, just in that last lap time alone.
Now, Eddie Irvine must at minimum be looking to get up into 6th position to get a World Championship point and hopefully keep his World Championship alive. He's in 8th place at the moment. He's got Rubens Barrichello in front of him, and Salo will probably be prepared to move over if Irvine can only catch him, but he's showing no sign of doing that. Well,
Salo looking very, very good there in 5th place,
yeah.
And certainly matching the leaders just about for pace. And Coulthard catching a bit there and braking for the 2nd chicane. Ralf Schumacher coming into the 1st corner. And here's the incident. That's a Prost. I think just blocking a wheel, I think. Nothing dramatic there. So...
Well, there's Hakkinen. Here is Frentzen now. They are out on their own. And I won't say Alex Zanardi is creating a roadblock, because he certainly isn't. There's a gap between him and Schumacher. But this circuit, like all of them, is difficult to get past on. And Zanardi, Schumacher, Salo, Coulthard and Barrichello, there they are all together. That's 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, with Eddie Irvine 2.2 seconds behind them in the Ferrari. He's got an awful lot to do. And David Coulthard now is putting on the pressure. He's extremely quick. He's right on the tail of Mika Salo.
And I think Barrichello's quicker than the pair of those two at the moment. So Barrichello confirming his warm-up pace. Irvine and Hill being dropped slightly.
Now, you may wonder why the Ferraris aren't going well here, and they do too. The story is that there has not been enough development. Their team boss, Jean Todt, went on record yesterday and said the other teams have made more advances than we have. Eddie Irvine has been mildly critical in saying that we haven't made enough progress in the last 4 or 5 races. but it's nothing to do with the drivers. And look at the gap now. Hakkinen to Irvine. These are the two world champion challengers. 9 seconds between them. And that is an enormous time in Formula One. But Heinz-Harald Frenzen's holding on to that position. Now, remember what we've been saying. If Frenzen can stay out longer than Hakkinen, he will have the opportunity to try to close up while Hakkinen is in the pits. The gap between them at the present moment is 2.2 seconds.
Yes, Hakkinen appears to have that 3 or 4 tenths of a second advantage that we anticipated, and he should just gently ease out the lead. But Coulthard is the other man who could take the championship, along with Frenzen still mathematically, but he's back in 6th place and not looking like he's got enough pace to cruise past Salo and Ralf Schumacher and Zanardi, for that matter, in the 2 Williams.
And that's Tora Takagi, who is the last of the runners who haven't been in, as he skips over the exit at the Rettifilio there. But and then goes onto the grass. This is Pedro de la Rosa, actually.
The front toe link is broken there, so the front right was having a mind of its own, and that's why he's pulled off the track. 2 Williams, a close look, and Coulthard pushing Salo.
What an absolute joy it is to see Alex Zanardi at last being able to show how good a driver he is. He's had a lot of unjustified criticism because of his inability to get to grips with the modern Formula One car after being the American kart champion for the last 2 years. Very different motor cars, but he's changed his driving style. They've changed the car. They've made all sorts of modifications to the Williams. That's Ricardo Zonta going through there and taking Johnny Herbert, and Zanardi now is reaping the reward. He's in 3rd position, by far the highest he's ever been in Formula One, including his Lotus years.
Yes, anybody involved in motorsport and champ car in particular are pretty shocked at young Rodriguez dying over there in practice for the next IndyCar race, and that's certainly made quite a shock here in the paddock, because he's a Formula 3000 runner. We're going to take a break. We'll be back very shortly.
Lap 8 at Monza.
Yes, nothing significant happened while you were away. Hakkinen had a 1:28.0 lap when he must have made a small mistake or something. Replied the next lap with a new fastest, so far fastest lap race of 1:26.7, a full 7 tenths faster than Frenzen, who's chasing him. So the gap back up to 3.2 seconds. You can see it clearly for yourself there, as Lacey makes a move and takes 11th position from Alexander Wurz.
Well, things have settled down a bit as you watch Salo and David Coulthard still only just in the points. He's down in 6th place after that tardy start. He's lost 4 places from the 2nd position that he started in, and he's only on 1 World Championship point at the moment.
Here's the good move, a good slingshot out of the slipstream, and Lacey making it stick up the inside. Bert's quite passive and lets him through. Coulthard still pressing on the back of Salo. Salo, 2nd time he's out-qualified Irvine, and Eddie's stock going down slightly. He's running back there in 8th position, out of the points and falling away over a second a lap.
Yeah, and Mika Hakkinen is increasing speed. He's just put in the fastest lap of the race, 1:26.5, and he's eased away now. He's nearly 4 seconds ahead of Heinz-Harald Frenzen. So he's very much got the feel of the car. And of course, Mika Hakkinen is on an absolutely gigantic high. He's already won 4 times this year in Brazil, Spain, Canada, Hungary. But Frenzen's in a very strong position. This race is by no means run. And you can see how close it is for the places, because behind Frenzen, who is all on his own, there's this tremendously tightly knit bunch after Zanardi, with Schumacher, Salo and Coulthard and Barrichello all together.
Yeah, Wurz' Benetton looks a nightmare. He's just having to defend everywhere. Comes into that corner completely on the wrong line just to defend. Lots of oversteer through the 3 Lesmos, and now it's easy to see how Lacey made the run on him up into Ascari.
Yeah, the Benettons have reverted to their lack of grip, which has been bothering them all season. They thought they'd beaten it, but it's come back at Monza. Fisichella was complaining bitterly in qualifying, and that's Pedro Diniz walking in from retirement. And we've got news about McLaren from James Allen.
Well, Murray, before I left the grid, I noticed that McLaren were topping up the tanks. You see those little tanks, they can put a little bit extra fuel up on the grid. It's a bit like what Eddie Irvine did in Austria when he was going to run longer. We expect expected McLaren obviously to try and run as far as they can, but it's much hotter today than any of the teams were really expecting, and the range of these cars has been reduced as a result. But looking at it now, the gap for me is consistent with Frentzen having about 15 kilos more fuel on board. You lose about 0.3 of a second for every 10 kilos that you carry in excess of everybody else, allowing him to go a little bit longer. But keep an eye out, guys, for the brakes. I know that McLaren have brought some bigger brake ducts here, so have Jordan, and the brakes certainly taking a big hammering with all this extra fuel on board and these very high temperatures.
Zonta and Herbert fighting for that 15th position, and here are Alex Wurz and Panis, followed by Zonta and Herbert. So those four are virtually together, led by Alex Wurz in the Benetton, 14th position, and Johnny Herbert bringing up the trail of these four cars, which are virtually tied together. Now, Herbert started down the grid. He's still only in 16th position. His teammate Rubens Barrichello, the man who's going to Ferrari next year, is in 7th position.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there used to be 39 cars in Formula One back in the late 80s. Now we have 22. But if you've got quality like, and that's Barrichello getting a run up the outside of David Coulthard. So Barrichello takes 6th place away from Coulthard.
Who is now out of the points. The man who started second, the man who is hoping to be world champion this year.
And the Prost makes it stick past Wurz. Finally, there must be, who's that? Is that Trulli or Panis?
That's Panis.
Panis makes it around the outside, so the Benetton slipping backwards too, just like Coulthard. But just to say, you've got quality drivers like Johnny Herbert and Ricardo Zonta having a massive scrap over 15th and 16th places. The quality, there's not so many of them now, but there's a lot of depth of quality in Formula One.
Yeah, and there's Herbert ahead of Zonta, and there's the other, there's Wurz. That's Wurz. He was touring, I don't know if he lost the car coming out of the Rettifilio, but having had that battle with Olivier Panis, he's dropped back. He's now behind Zonta. Now, let's just look at this race. We're on lap 11 out of 53, and that's what happened to the Benetton. Hakkinen is leading Frentzen by 5 seconds now. Zanardi is 8.3 seconds behind Hakkinen, and he is just about 8/10 ahead of his teammate, Ralf Schumacher, who's in 4th position. Then it's Mika Salo, 5th, and Barrichello ahead of David Coulthard in 6th position. So only one McLaren in the points, only one Jordan in the points, both Williams in the points, one Ferrari in the points, and a Stewart.
Wurz across yet another gravel trap, and he's really fighting that car. I think you'll see him either pit for another set of tyres or probably even retire. That's 2 or 3 corners he's been virtually unable. That's Ralf really taking the bouncy way across the shortcut, and I don't think he'll get penalised for that one either. Hakkinen now with a 5.8 second lead.
Yeah, this is a typically immaculate Mika Hakkinen weekend. He takes pole position with that scintillating lap yesterday. He gets away brilliantly at the start. That is Alex Wurz. It looks as though both Benettons are now out of the race, and this is only lap 12. But there is Frentzen, now nearly 6 seconds behind, and Alex Zanardi is catching the Jordan. And Schumacher is right behind him. There is Salo, there is Barrichello. 7th is David Coulthard, and in 8th position Eddie Irvine ahead of Damon Hill. 9th, just to complete the top 10, Jacques Villeneuve going well in the BAR.
Well, the yellow flags will be out on the start line. Wurz is just cruising past our commentary box, actually. I don't know why he didn't take the pit lane instead of break down and cruise down the pit straight. He is now, as we thought may happen, out of the race. So Wurz retiring, both Benettons out of the race.
Yeah, early bath for the Whitney team. They won't be at all happy about that, and why should they be? But the Williams are going like 2 trains. There is Schumacher, and Mika Salo can do nothing about the Williams. Now remember that the Ferrari has got a much more powerful engine than the Supertech customer engine in the Williams, as we look at Jean Alesi and Jarno Trulli fighting for 11th place, and Trulli in the Prost, the man who's joining the Jordan team, maybe for Malaysia and Japan this year. Mika Hakkinen, clear track, over 6 seconds now, lap 13, 53 lap race. Alex Wurz walks despondently in. His race is run. But Mika really just has to keep going the way things are at the moment. but anything could happen in this lot.
Yes, I think the next thing we're going to see happen is Barrichello pressing and probably passing Salo. I think he's got just about enough speed, so Barrichello certainly has been on the march since he managed to clear the McLaren of Coulthard. And now you can see him, two Williams line astern, Salo, and then Barrichello. And you can see Irvine and Hill in the background.
Down to the Parabolica. They approach it at 210 miles an hour. Slow down to 110 miles an hour. The corner opens out as they leave it. They build up to 175 miles an hour. Then to 215 as they approach the Rettifilio. And David Coulthard, inch by inch, is losing contact. Now, he's still close up, but Barrichello is increasing the gap between himself and the McLaren. And Eddie Irvine can still do no better than 8th ahead of Damon Hill 9th.
Curious for Coulthard, he won here in '97. He was screaming off into the distance here last year until the engine failed. This appears to be his kind of racetrack, but this weekend just hasn't been able to hook it up.
No, but it's not a race for the lead at the moment. Well, it is, of course, but I mean, Hakkinen is out there on his own, that's Wurtz. It's not a race for second place because Frenson is out there on his own. But my goodness, what a race it is for third position, with Zanardi, Schumacher, Salo, Barrichello and Coulthard covered by the metaphorical blanket. And Eddie Irvine starting to close a bit. Irvine in the Ferrari in 8th position is starting to close. Maybe he started with an exceptionally heavy fuel load, and the car, of course, gets lighter as the fuel is used. We're on lap 14 now in this 53-lap race.
Well, it's a while since Ralf Schumacher's had his dominance in the Williams team questioned and had to follow another Williams car, isn't it? So Zanardi just inching away from him slightly there. So Ralf, and you can see him locking brakes into the chicanes, driving very acrobatically and struggling to stay in touch with Zanardi.
I was talking to one of the public relations people at Williams yesterday, and she said what an absolute joy Alex Zanardi is to work with. She said he could talk for England, and considering he's an Italian, that's no mean achievement. They love him here, he loves this place, and he's absolutely reveling in the performance of the Williams, which has been improved so much. And remember, next year, Williams are going to have a BMW Works engine, and they will then really fly. Maybe they won't reach their peak until 2001, because the first year is always difficult, but we can expect a lot from them in the year 2000, as we are getting it in the year 1999. And that is Schumacher, Salo there in the Ferrari in 5th position, the man who was 2nd in Germany. He's driven for BAR, he's driven for Ferrari this year. And we're going to leave Monza, but come back and join us. We're on lap 15 at the moment. Lap 17 out of 53, and is Olivier Panis, who's just left the pits from 14th position on a 2-stop strategy. He must be, because he's absolutely on target for laps 14 and 36 if he is. He would be hoping, of course, that starting off with a light fuel load would enable him to make up places, but he came in from a lowly 14th. Now, Martin, you were talking about Salo there in the Ferrari and Barrichello, and how difficult it was for Barrichello to get past because of the aerodynamic problem.
Well, yes, Barrichello, I think, is clearly faster than Salo, but we saw on the previous lap, he went diving into this next corner, Parabolica, in the slipstream and just understeered, washed across the road and going right to the outside of the corner way too early, just because he didn't have enough front grip. Salo gets on the throttle earlier, and there's not, even as long as this straight is, there's not enough time to regain that ground, to have a nibble under braking into the first corner. And Zanardi's got his hand in the air and he's pointing to Ralf. He's let Ralf through. So Zanardi giving position. I saw him with his hand in the cockpit, and he's obviously feeling at this point Ralph's got the faster car. Well, that's pretty gentlemanly.
Gentlemanly act, no less than you'd expect from Alex Zanardi. And look at the way that Schumacher's already pulling away from him. Schumacher's already, and there is Trulli. It looks as though the two Prosts are definitely on a 2-stop strategy. Prost has been in, there is Trulli in, and he came in from 13th position. Now the top 10 on lap 18, as you watch Pedro de la Rosa in the arrows getting into trouble, are Hakkinen leading Frenson by 7 seconds. Zanardi has given way to Schumacher, who is now now third, Zanardi fourth, Salo fifth, with Rubens Barrichello right behind him in sixth position. David Coulthard still out of the points. There he is in the background in seventh place. Eddie Irvine can do nothing to improve his position. He started eighth, he's still there. Damon Hill is in ninth position. He has improved places, and Villeneuve is 10th.
The two Prost that have stopped, they're on a two-stopper, they're completely the wrong strategy. James, what can you tell us about Coulthard?
Well, I guess we're all wondering the same thing, Martin. Why is David Coulthard going so slowly? Well, the only thing I can offer him by way of explanation, all weekend he's been struggling with an oversteer, understeer problem in the fast corners, the Lesmo and the Parabolica, but I did notice on the grid he was making some changes to the rear anti-roll bar, which is not the sort of thing you want to be doing on the grid before a Grand Prix, so I can only speculate he's still very unhappy with the handling of the back end of the car. Now, Murray, you were mentioning before that the gap that you need to be safe when you make your pit stops, thinking of Häkkinen and Frentzen. Well, you need 23 seconds to pit and rejoin ahead of your rival, but the critical bit is what he can do while you pit over the next 3 or 4 laps in the case where Frentzen runs a little bit longer. I reckon Häkkinen needs a clear 10 to 15 seconds to be safe for Frentzen. At the moment, the gap seems static at around 6 to 7 seconds.
James, thank you, James. Sorry to interrupt, but Barrichello is now ahead of Salo, who is down into sixth position. Rubens Barrichello in the stewards has taken David Coulthard. He has taken Salo, there he is.
Good slingshot out, and it's good. You can brake anywhere you like into that second chicane. It's even grip right across the racetrack, and Rubens really. And to confirm the pace of that Stewart car today, Johnny Herbert, although he's in 12th place now, is the second fastest man on the circuit, and much faster even than race leader. A new fastest lap of the race you just saw, Ralf Schumacher. Now he's cleared the slipstream of Zanardi. He's just flying a low 126, so it's about to change.
Sorry for that, James, but we did get the message, and I can tell you that Frentzen at the present moment is certainly close enough to Mika Häkkinen to remain a real danger. As you see, Ralf Schumacher, the man of the season as far as I am concerned, really flying. He's got two third positions in the World Championship already in Australia and Britain. And the low downforce configuration of the Williams really suits this circuit. And if the Grove concern can keep their cars where they are, they will get the points that they need to help them in the Constructors' Championship. They're in 4th position at the moment behind Jordan, who are aiming to be 3rd for the first time in their career, which began, the Jordan team, in 1991. So, Mika Salo in the Ferrari, but we're now looking at Zanardi and Barrichello. There is Salo, David Coulthard, who is in 7th position. And so the next target for Rubens Barrichello in the white Stewart, who is flying, is Alex Zanardi.
Ralf Schumacher, once again, extremely late on the brakes. I assume he stayed on the road. And Coulthard there watching his 1999 World Championship hopes evaporate at the moment, although we're only just over a third of the way through the race. Coulthard needs to start making some moves fast. He can't afford to let Häkkinen take 10 points away from him. Häkkinen, a new fastest lap of the race at 26.2, and Frentzen 26.4, Ralf Schumacher 26.6. So the pace is close at the front, but Häkkinen with a 7.8 second lead, as you can see.
Now, Eddie Irvine despondently said yesterday, we've got some new stuff coming along for the next Grand Prix, the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring in Germany on September the 26th, but he said, we need things here. He hasn't got them here. He's in 8th position. He's out of the points. Mika Häkkinen is on 10 points. He's already leading Irvine by 1 point. So if Mika Häkkinen can stay where he is for a 5th win of 1999, he will be doing his World Championship hopes for the 2nd year in succession, a power of good. But look at this, and remember that they've all got to come in and make pit stops. Some of them are going to make them not quite as well as the others, and they're close enough at the moment for that dramatically to change the positions from 4th down to 7th. Zanardi 4th, Barrichello 5th, there is Salo in 6th position, Coulthard in 7th, Eddie Irvine behind them, 2.8 seconds behind them in the 2nd Ferrari in 8th position. Damon Hill behind him is 9th, and 10th is still Jacques Villeneuve, hoping for his 2nd finish of 1990. There he is, ahead of John Alesi is 11th, Johnny Herbert is 12th. It is still mighty, mighty close, except for the lead. as Coulthard exits the Parabolica at 175 miles an hour. The speed continues to build by another 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour to 215 miles an hour before they back off at a seemingly suicidal braking to go through the Rettifilo. When do you start to brake from 215?
About 110 metres before the corner, and it's quite a slingshot, and you've got to have the car nicely balanced. You've got to have the weight on the outside two tyres as much as you can, get the car stable before you leap over. If you don't leap over with the car really nicely balanced, it comes off the other side of the curb and can give you quite a slide. So there's a real trick to it, but you've got to commit. You've got to totally commit yourself to those curbs. If you mess around, it'll flick the car up in the air and you'll be pointing in the wrong direction.
Martin, I'm fascinated at the way Ralf Schumacher's cleared off from this battle led by Zanardi in fourth position. Do you think there were some instructions over the radio from Williams?
I don't know, because I didn't see any sign that Zanardi was struggling to... in fact, if you remember, he was inching away, but I wonder if he's got a bit of a soggy brake pedal or something. Ralf, meanwhile, has done the fastest midsection of the entire race so far, so clearly Ralf is more comfortable. Maybe Alex was pushing his car a little bit too hard in the beginning, but Ralf's certainly been sliding around locking wheels enough.
Lap 23 now, so in about 7 laps' time, I'm expecting them to start coming in. Remember, the two Prosts have already been in on laps 14 and 15 of what were obviously pre-arranged two-stop strategies. Zanardi, look, really on the brakes, into the Rettifilo, pushed by Barrichello.
I think we saw blue smoke from Zanardi's car there, but I think he was going through the blue smoke of Ralf Schumacher locking a wheel ahead of him, and this is a curb cam with the Ferrari running over us, but Zanardi still, I think he was actually going through a trail of blue smoke that Ralf Schumacher had put down.
Very frustrating for Rubens Barrichello, I'm sure. If he could get past Zanardi, he could pull away, but Zanardi is being perfectly decent, legal, honest and everything else. He's sticking to the racing line, that's what he should do. And it's up to Barrichello. I always remember Ken Tyrrell used to say, it's their job to get past you, not your job to help them. And that's underlined now by Zanardi, sticking to the racing line. And there just isn't enough extra performance from the Stewart in terms of engine horsepower or car handling to enable Rubens to make the move.
Yes, I drove for Ken Tyrrell for 3 years, and I hope you're listening to us at home, Ken. I think he does listen to F1 ITV. I used to get called down to Ockham, which is 2.5-hour drive from Norfolk, 2 days after a Grand Prix, to be told which laps I lost the most time on in traffic or whatever, and there would also be a little tray of gears on the desk saying, do you know how much these cost? Did you look after them a bit better during the race? But Ken was particularly stringent on not losing time whilst moving around other cars.
Lovely man, and we miss him in Formula One here. So, Mika Salo, 6th position, chased by David Coulthard. Only one McLaren still in the points, but it's in the place that matters, in the lead. So, at the present moment, McLaren are leading the Constructors' Championship from Ferrari by 9 points. You're looking now, that's Tora Takagi in 17th place, chasing Italian Luca Badoer out of the Ascari-Benz down to the Parabolica.
In 18th place, or more commonly known as last at the moment, unfortunately.
Because Wurz has retired, Deniz has retired, Fisichella has retired, both the Benettons therefore out, Marc Genet has retired, so there is Schumacher third. Here's the battle for fourth.
And Ralf Schumacher's homing in on Frentzen now, so it looks like the Williams are just, maybe they're working their tyres a little bit harder, but Ralf did manage to take 4/10 out of Frentzen. We haven't seen much of Frentzen.
Takagi climbing up Badoer, and off they both go. Now it's Takagi trying an impossible move, coming to the Rettifilo, climbs over the back of the Minardi, goes on, wow. And here's Frentzen going through and trying to lap Pedro de la Rosa, which Mika Häkkinen has already done, and out of the car gets...
The reason Frentzen would have to be so cautious, though, there'd be certainly, of course, yellow flags out, and basically all that's happened is Takagi's locked his brakes. To be honest, I don't think there's any really... It wasn't a silly move. He was just trying to brake late, locked his front brakes, and the car in front was stopping better, and that elevates Badoer in 16th to last place. But here we go again. Look, front wheel locked, your retardation decays, and climbing up the back. And then Frentzen lost a lot of time. He could not overtake that back marker. The back marker was trying to let him through, and he couldn't overtake because of the waved yellow flag. So now Ralf Schumacher just 2.7 seconds behind Frentzen.
And that will have helped Mika Häkkinen, of course, because he had already got past. He was 7.6 seconds ahead at the end of lap 24. We're on lap 25 at the present moment, and there is the Arrows touring in as Salo and Coulthard, 6th and 7th, go through, and Ralf Schumacher has still got Barrichello tucked up at his rear wing as we again leave for a short time at Monza. So there's the replay of Takagi climbing over the back of the Minardi. And now we are going to the break, but we'll be back as soon as we can.
Back with you. Häkkinen still leads by 8.2 seconds, but we're going to show you an overtaking manoeuvre that happened while you're away. Barrichello out on the far right, our right-hand side of the racetrack, gets a run out of Ascari, and even just halfway down the straight, he's ahead of Zanardi. So Barrichello using his tremendous straight line speed to move up into 4th place. And this time, now Salo's through.
Yeah, there is no doubt about the fact that Zanardi has got some sort of a car problem. He let Schumacher through originally. Now he's had to give way to Barrichello. Now he's had to give way to Salo. And Eddie Irvine will be hoping to be able to get into the points. He's still in 8th position, but if he can get through and pass Zanardi as the others are doing, he could be there.
This is Salo picking up a good slipstream over the start-finish line and just rocketing past. Now watch Zanardi when he brakes. There is some smoke coming out of his car. We didn't see it, unfortunately, in that shot. But we did see some earlier on. I thought it was the tyre smoke of another car, but there is some kind of smoke coming out of the back of Zanardi's car under heavy braking, which I have to say around this circuit is somewhat worrying.
Another retirement for the BAR of Zonta, but on lap 28, over half distance, it is Häkkinen leading Frentzen by 8.2 seconds. Not enough, we think. 3rd is Ralf Schumacher. Rubens Barrichello, as there he is, has moved up into 4th position. The Arrows behind is De La Rosa as Patrick Head, the technical boss of Williams, and Sir Frank Williams talk to each other. And in 5th position, Zanardi.
Yes, now Coulthard's lining himself up for a run at Zanardi, who seems to be a touch slow out of Parabolica, and blue flags waving. James, what's happening?
Martin, amazing. Pushboard's been put out to both Häkkinen and Coulthard, but particularly to Häkkinen, because his lead is just 8.4 seconds. I don't think it's going to be enough. Now, you remember earlier in the programme, I mentioned Austria, where McLaren allowed David Coulthard to run at a certain pace, and they didn't let him build up a big enough lead over Eddie Irvine, who had more fuel in his tank, and Irvine pinched the race from him. It could happen again today. I think McLaren really need to get Häkkinen motoring. He's only got 7.99 seconds, and we know Frentzen could push hard.
Hey, you're absolutely right, and Alex Zanardi has got a brake problem. He just overran the corner at the Rettifilio, and David Coulthard now in 7th position is tucked up right behind the Williams, looking to get into the points.
I think it's Coulthard who overruns the chicane. Look, he's got a run down the outside. Zanardi says, you're not coming through here, mate. Coulthard having to take to the shortcut. But Zanardi definitely coming under increasing pressure. He's fading away. He can't find enough grip from his car.
And if Coulthard had got past, of course, he would undoubtedly have been penalised because he would have benefited from going off the course. That is Eddie Irvine, and behind Irvine is Damon Hill. Now, coming towards us is Mika Salo in the Ferrari. Now, he's 5th. The Arrows has been lapped. There is 6th position, Zanardi.
Oh, and that's Häkkinen spinning!
Häkkinen, the race leader! He's out of the race! He's out of the race! Mika Häkkinen retires on lap 30, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen leads, and this could blow the World Championship wide open. And Mika Häkkinen, after the misery of Belgium, is consumed with rage, and the Tifosi are consumed with delight. The Italian Grand Prix has gone mega.
Well, remember, they've just given him the push sign, and I don't know if he's got some kind of technical problem. Barrichello's made his stop. Barrichello leaving the pit lane. We're watching Häkkinen. Whether he's just gone in too deep and outbraked himself, let's watch it. Does he have any kind of mechanical problem, or has he just gone in? Does he lock a wheel? No, yes, I think he does. I think as he snatched the final gear shift, he's just... And look, the engine's stalled, look. He's already lost the engine. It's almost like he didn't try to start again. I wonder if the engine was already dead, but somehow, look, Häkkinen just turns in and just snatches the back away. Very unusual to lose it like that. I don't know what happened there, and, well, it's locked the rear wheels. Häkkinen buried in the gravel. He made no attempt whatsoever to get the car out of the gravel, so I think he'd already lost the engine. Now he's running back to the pits. They tend to throw things at you here if you're not a Ferrari driver, so that's why he's got a security man with him.
Well,
put a different
now Heinz-Harald Frentzen leads the Italian Grand Prix. Ralf Schumacher is second, and Rubens Barrichello is up into third place. Ferrari, Salo is in fifth position, but things are changing even as I talk to you.
Coulthard has another run, and sorry to interrupt you, Murray, but Coulthard had another run on Zanardi, but Zanardi went down the right-hand side this time and just closed him off. Now he's crying his eyes out in the pits, in amongst the trees. Häkkinen absolutely distraught.
Yeah, because Eddie Irvine is... If Eddie Irvine could get in the points, if he could get just one World Championship point, and he's currently in sixth position, he's in the World Championship points, and if he can get one World Championship point and stay there, he will be tying for the lead of the World Championship with the crying Mika Häkkinen there at the end of this race. But we're on lap 31. We've still got 22 laps to go. Anything can happen in Formula One, and it usually does.
Well, that's a pretty emotive picture. I wonder what's going through Häkkinen's mind. This is
Martin, look at this. This is Frentzen and Schumacher. Ralf Schumacher in the Williams is now only 2.2 seconds behind the Jordan. And, well, dear me.
Yeah, I have to say, I think that's tears. I think that's tears coming out of there.
Yes.
You've got to wonder if he made a mistake. I just wonder why he didn't try to keep the engine running and drive out. The gravel wasn't very deep there. He could have recovered that car. I just wonder how and why he lost that. Maybe there was a technical problem that killed the engine.
Mika thinks that's his wife on the right. Mika thinks he's been cheated of 30 points already this season through no fault of his own. He bitterly resented and made no bones about showing it. That's Zanardi exiting the pits. He bitterly resented the fact that there weren't team orders in Belgium. And James Allen may have updating news for us. He's at McLaren.
Oh, an amazing atmosphere down here, Murray. You can just imagine. When the incident happened, Erja Häkkinen grabbed her head, Mika Häkkinen's wife, and then when she saw her husband crowded in the bushes, crying his eyes out, she just looked, nodding her head. She nodded her head particularly when the marshal put his arm around Mika's shoulders. You could tell she really wanted to be there herself, because what's happened here, guys, is Mika Häkkinen's done exactly what he did in San Marino. He's been leading a Grand Prix on his way to victory, and once again he's thrown it away. He has 1 point over Eddie Irvine, who could easily finish fifth today, grab 2 points and be back in the lead of the championship. Formula One turns over, and Mika Häkkinen has turned himself over.
You are so right, James, and Ralf Schumacher is continuing to pressure Frentzen as Panis makes a very quick lap down in 11th place in the Prost. Over the line into a new lap goes Frentzen, leading on lap 33 in a 53-lap race, and that is Schumacher in second place.
Schumacher finishing on the podium here last year, of course, but if Häkkinen was to see the monitors and the picture that you at home can see, he might not be quite so upset, because really Coulthard's the only man in the points at the moment, and not too many of them. He's currently running fourth, but he's yet to make his pit stop. He's now done the fastest lap of the race, senses he needs to pick up some points today, and Irvine really not threatening a points position at all at the moment, so Häkkinen hasn't lost everything.
Yeah, but Irvine is in fifth position, which is 2 World Championship points, and that will put him in the lead in the championship if he can stay there.
Yes, but Barrichello has already stopped, and so has Zanardi, so at the moment slightly false for Eddie, although of course he has gained a position with Häkkinen's Demise, and that's Salo.
Well, the Italian Grand Prix is a long way from finish. Lap 33, 20 to go. But Barrichello, yes, has made his pit stop, and Alex Zanardi is down in 10th position. But Heinz-Harald Frentzen leads Ralf Schumacher by the gap that you can see. and he's actually lapping marginally quicker than the Williams driver. Look at the clear track behind them. Mika Salo is 12 seconds down the road and only just ahead of David Coulthard, who's now the fastest man on the track, as Salo comes up to pass Takagi with Coulthard behind him, but Takagi gets in the way, and Eddie Irvine on 2 World Championship points, which he probably never thought he'd get, and in comes Schumacher. Now, remember what I said about Frentzen? He's got that big fuel tank on the Jordan. He's going to be able to stay out and put in some pit laps with the fuel weight declining all the time. No problem with tyres. These Bridgestone softer compound tyres do not degrade. In fact, they're getting quicker and quicker as the race goes by. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen is in a very, very strong position at the present moment to get his second win of 1999, having already won brilliantly in appalling weather conditions at Magny-Cours in France.
That's Alesi in from a current 8th place. No problems getting away this time. The fuel flap will go down when he switches off the pit limiter and he rejoins the track. It's a very easy pit in, pit out here. The only place in the world where you can simply scream at the 120-kilometre board, and it's just a straight-in approach. But Alesi rejoins an empty track momentarily. Who's going to appear underneath the bridge?
Salo,
Who are we waiting for?
Yeah. It should be Salo, yes it is. So Salo is now second, David Coulthard is now third, with Ralf Schumacher having stopped. Up into 4th position, I think, comes Eddie Irvine, as a totally dispirited Mika Häkkinen wearily trudges back. He hasn't got all that far to walk, but every step will seem like 10 miles to him. So Salo, Coulthard, 4th place Eddie Irvine, 5th place Damon Hill. Round the Grand Curve. Well, that move of Mika Häkkinen's at the Rettifilo has blown the Italian Grand Prix and the World Championship wide open, as into the pits comes the Jordan of Damon Hill. Now let's see how long he takes. Remember, Schumacher has already stopped, Barrichello has stopped, Alesi has stopped, Frentzen is leading the race. Damon Hill gets out after 9.5 seconds, a nice clean stop.
It's because they're running so long in the first stint. Although it's a one-stop race, they haven't got to put that much fuel in to get them through the last 19 laps.
Well, now this raises the question of whether Damon is going to go on, because at the present moment both Jordans are in the points. Heinz-Harald Frentzen on 10 points, possibly, if he finishes and wins. Damon Hill, who came in from 5th position, will regain that when some of the others have to stop. So we've got the prospect of both Jordans again being in the points to consolidate their 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship. And Damon may then feel he's done his duty, as in comes Frentzen, race leader.
Well, despite all the rumours, Frentzen cannot say mine is bigger than yours, because he's had to stop before Coulthard and both Ferraris. So clearly the Jordan fuel tank wasn't quite as big as everybody thought.
And he gets out now. What about Mika Salo? Is he going to get through? I haven't seen him go past. Yes, there he is. And Mika Salo takes the lead. Coulthard goes up into 2nd place. Heinz-Harald rejoins the race in 3rd position. But the race leader, Mika Salo, remember, he led in Germany and he leads a 2nd time as Eddie Irvine from 4th position in the 2nd Ferrari comes in. All of a sudden, things are looking good for Ferrari. Amazing when you think that they started 6th and 8th and were down in 14th and 18th places in the warm-up this morning. Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Salo leads, Coulthard 2nd, 1 McLaren in the points.
But it's still quite comforting for Frentzen, although he's currently running 3rd, of course, to as Coulthard sets a new fastest first section of the race, as the fuel is absolutely at minimum. They're nearly on fumes now, running with these cars, these 2 cars. Frentzen watching from 3rd place, knowing that they've got to stop, and they're going to be some way behind him when they rejoin the racetrack. Frentzen's car now with probably 50-60 kilos of fuel back on board.
Yeah, you can see him, look, he's 3rd, well in sight of the race leaders, Salo and Coulthard, both of whom have got to stop. And you know from Martin's superb piece before this programme began on pit stop strategies and everything that happens, how much it's going to slow them down.
Coulthard peeling off, in fact, so is Salo too. Coulthard all locked up, trying to get down to the speed limit, and I think taking a faster run into his clear Pitger James.
Yeah, Sarlo in at DC as well, and the fuel's going in. Martin, as DC gets out behind Sarlo, but don't forget with Frentzen, he was only stationary for 7.6 seconds. Now at this stage of the race, that means he's not put as much fuel in. It was a tactical move by Jordan. They brought him in earlier. His fuel tank would have allowed him to go longer, but they brought him in earlier because they knew that everybody else was going to do it too. So he actually has played a very good card, I think.
Yes, and Barrichello has, he stopped very early of these leaders, Barrichello, but that's put him up in between Sarlo and Coulthard. So Barrichello hasn't really gained out of that, and Coulthard will come out of this net, I think, 5th place, Barrichello 4th, Irvine 3rd, so Frentzen and Ralph will be 1st and 2nd, and that's really now heading into these last 17 laps, and Barrichello's got some more work to do now to repass that Ferrari.
Indeed he has, and what a humdinger of a race Mika Sarlo is driving. We're on lap 37 now, 53-lap race. It's been action all the way, but particularly since the unfortunate Mika Häkkinen drove himself out of the race. And we're going to take another break, but we'll be back very soon. Remember what Jim Rosenthal said about only 3 pole sitters winning the Italian Grand Prix in 25 years? Well, that statistic still applies. Mika Häkkinen out of the raceway with Damon Hill.
No, yes, and Hill's going to go across the escape road. You saw that just as you picked us back up, so no particular drama there for Damon. Locks a wheel on the way in, and you have to commit early. If you're not going to make the corner, you have to decide very early and go through the shortcuts.
Well, now, the interesting thing is that Eddie Irvine in 6th position is on 1 World Championship point, and if he stays where he is, it will mean that he and Häkkinen are tying for the World Championship lead with 3 races to go at the end of this month. But there's still some laps. Frentzen leads Schumacher by just under 6 seconds. Sarlo is 3rd in the Ferrari. Barrichello is 4th in the Stewart. Coulthard is 5th, and there he is in the background in the McLaren ahead of Eddie Irvine.
Well, if Häkkinen did drop the McLaren, it's a very difficult when you walk back into your paddock. Everybody's eyes tend to go the other way. Mechanics, everybody's embarrassed, everybody's uncomfortable, and nobody knows quite what to say, and it's rather tense, to say the least.
Yeah, and which you can well understand, because everybody has to try so hard. The mechanics are just as important as the driver. The designers and the engineers are just as important as the mechanics. Formula One is a team sport. Everybody depends on everyone else, and if any one of them inadvertently lets the others down, there's bound to be major misery. Well, this is Barrichello 4th in the Stewart, and David Coulthard now, of course, is going to close the gap between himself and Mika Häkkinen a bit in the World Championship. He was 14 points behind the Finn in 3rd position when this race started. At the present moment, he is now closing that gap by 2 points for 5th position. If he could get ahead of Barrichello, it would become down by 3 points.
Well, these two fought out the British Formula 3 Championship, of course, but Coulthard must get past Barrichello and, to a certain extent, Sarlo. He's got to maximise the fact that Häkkinen is out today in terms of World Championship points. And the problem they've got there is that the fastest man on the racetrack at the moment is Mika Sarlo, and he's actually pulling away from these two.
With Heinz-Harald Frentzen on lap 41 in the Jordan, having made his pit stop, they all have now. The one stop that we expect them to make is leading the race by just under 6 seconds. Ralf Schumacher is 8 seconds ahead of Mika Sarlo, who is starting to speed up and close, as you just heard from Martin. And this is the battle for 4th and 5th places. Stewart. In the other Stewart, incidentally, Johnny Herbert is down in 11th place. There are 12 runners from the 22 who started. The retirements are Takagi and De La Rosa, Arrows, Mika Häkkinen, Jarno Trulli, Zonta, Bader, Wurz, Deniz, Fisichella and Marc Genet, as Sarlo looks in his mirrors to see where Barrichello is, and the answer is 3.5 seconds down the road behind him, into the Ascari bends.
Yes, they're dropping him, he's dropping them rather by about 6/10 per lap. But Coulthard's faster under braking. Barrichello appears to have plenty of straight line speed. And if you look at the skinny little wing on the back of the white Stewart, you'll see why. Virtually no downforce, therefore less drag. Drag squares with speed when you're doing 220 miles an hour makes a huge difference. Barrichello then making a good job of driving a car that's probably a bit skinny on grip, but Coulthard can't get near enough to make his better braking performance count.
And Eddie Irvine is still struggling because Zanardi in 7th place, despite whatever the problem is with his Williams, is actually closing up on the Ferrari. And Eddie Irvine must, from his point of view, stay where he is at minimum to get that one World Championship point. This is lap 42, 11 laps to go.
Johnny Herbert stopped somewhere in the first section, Murray, so his awful, almost career luck really continues.
Yeah, all his career, Johnny Herbert has had appalling luck. And try as he may, David Coulthard cannot displace Rubens Barrichello as we join and look at Heinz Harald Frentzen, who said to the Jordan team before this race began, I feel good to win this one. And that's not the sort of thing that Frentzen would say vainly. He's been very, very strong, not just at this meeting, but all through the season. And it's looking magnificent for him now.
Yes, well, he'll have a fright when he gets back to the start-finish line, sees his pit board that he lost 10% of his lead on the previous lap. So Ralph taking a full half-second out of his 5-second lead. So Coulthard once again using way too much runoff on the outside of Ascari. Doesn't seem to slow him down much, though, as he continues his pursuit of Barrichello into Parabolica.
Now, you can see how you just have to be calm and cool when you're under pressure. I remind you that these cars are lapping in excess of 150 miles an hour at speeds which range from 215 miles an hour to a low point of about 60 miles an hour for the Rettifilio, which Barrichello is approaching now. And Barrichello will see the shape of David Coulthard's McLaren in his mirrors, and he's just got to keep calm and stick to the racing line and give David no opportunity to get past him. Meantime, Mika Salo is maintaining the pressure. He's going to bring a Ferrari home in 3rd place if he stays where he is.
In '96, I had a similar battle here with Barrichello when we were both in the Jordan, and we were this close for 4th and 5th position, and Barrichello yumping over the curbs in the first chicane, managed, his hand flailing around, managed to switch off the ignition, which I was very thankful for, as it enabled me to pass him and take the position. But no such problems for him here, although he's got rather a lot of silver paint in his mirrors.
Well, they say you learn by experience. I guess he won't be doing that again. We're on lap 43 with Frentzen now leading by 5.5 seconds. Here are the 3rd, 4th and 5th in the same shot. Ralf Schumacher looks as though he's going to finish the highest that he has ever been in a Grand Prix, with the exception of 1 second place that he has had in the past. This young man is more than mirroring the ability of his brilliant double world champion brother, Michael Schumacher, who we may see back in Malaysia. Personally, I hope we won't, because I want him to get really fit again. We're going to leave Monza again, but we're on lap 44. Lap 46 out of 53, no change at the front. Frentzen is on a possible, indeed probable, 10 World Championship points for the 2nd time in his Jordan career. It would be his 3rd win because he won one for Williams. And although Ralf Schumacher has closed the gap a bit, it's still over 5 seconds. Mika Salo is currently the fastest man on the track. 3rd position in the Ferrari, catching Ralf Schumacher. But as Ralf Schumacher hasn't got enough time to catch Frentzen, who locks up there into the Rettifilio, nor, I think, has Salo got enough time to catch Schumacher. There is Salo. Here is the battle for 4th position, which continues to rage between the steward of Rubens Barrichello, the white car, and David Coulthard on 2 World Championship points. Not enough to carve dramatically into Häkkinen's lead, but every little helps. And Eddie Irvine is still on 1 championship point. Yeah,
Coulthard actually on 2 wheels as well through the 2nd chicane. Caught the curbs badly and leapt off the other side and just drops back slightly. As I said, I think he's got slightly the faster car at the moment. Can't do anything with it at all. Rubens appears to have it under control, and with the maturity and experience Rubens has now, he shouldn't be snatching brakes and wandering across gravel traps and that sort of thing. Rubens, I think, has moved beyond that sort of thing. Salo, the only thing that significant recently is that Salo's cranked in a new fastest lap of the race on a 1:25.6. Still out there and the fastest man, but as you said, Murray, not enough time, I think, to haul in those 2 leaders.
Well, not a bad day for Ferrari and the Tifosi, if you think about it, compared with what they could have expected, with Mika Salo in 3rd place, Eddie Irvine in 6th position, and next year's Ferrari driver Rubens Barrichello in 4th place. But David Coulthard must continue to push for the sake of McLaren in the Constructors' Championship and himself in the Drivers' Championship, because Ferrari are on 5 points at the present moment, compared with McLaren on 2 points. So Ferrari are closing the gap in the Constructors' Championship by 3 points, which would bring them to within 6 points of McLaren with another 3 races to go if they stay where they are. But if either Barrichello or David Coulthard put a wheel wrong, those figures could change. We're on lap 47 now, and there is Mika Salo, who has really underlined his talent here in Italy. He's driving for a different team next year. He's going to Sauber with a Ferrari engine, so he'll know all about that. This is his 5th race for Ferrari. He came in with a real bang in Germany for that 2nd place, and it looks as though he's going to add a 3rd to his tally if he finishes in Italy.
Difficult call for Ferrari. They've got Salo in a podium position. They could slow him at the end of the race and add another point to Irvine's tally and put him in the lead of the World Championship.
But they'd have to let Barrichello and Coulthard through if they did that.
I know, but his main enemy at the moment is Hakkinen, so they may choose to do that, but it's going to look rather dramatic for Salo to have to let Barrichello, Coulthard and Irvine through in the late stages of the race. If they choose to play the team game now, they're allowed to do that, but do they want to? Eddie's not staying with them next year. Do they really want that to happen?
No, absolutely. So there is the man, and there is his boss. Frank Williams is seeing his team come back, looking at Ralf Schumacher now, continuing slowly to reel in Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the race leader, but he's only doing it at the rate of about 0.2 of a second a lap. We're on lap 48 now, 5 laps to go, so that's about 17 or 18 miles in Italy. Perfect weather conditions, and Frentzen leads, Schumacher 2nd, Salo 3rd, Barrichello hanging on to that 4th place. David Coulthard could do nothing about it. You saw Salo go out of picture. You should see Eddie Irvine. There he is, coming out of the Ascari bends. And Ralf Schumacher is currently not only the fastest man in the race, 125.579, compared with Häkkinen's 125.14 last year, so he's only marginally off last year's fastest lap. And Schumacher is now within 4 seconds of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. But I suspect that the German on lap 49 out of 54 is just pacing himself home. He knows he can give away a few tenths of a second every lap and still finish ahead of Ralf Schumacher. And it doesn't matter whether you win by 6 inches or 60 yards or 6 miles, it's still 10 World Championship points. And if Damon Hill, who is down in 9th position, can't do anything about scoring a World Championship point, well, Frentzen is on 10 of them. And that is going to close the gap between Jordan and McLaren. And
who's that coming? It must
that's
be past.
Damon.
That's past Hill, is it? So that's a Lacey passing Hill for 9th position.
Yes, Damon is obviously struggling. Remember, he was in the points at one time during all the tyre and wheel changes and refuelling stops. And this is a replay as Jordan Lacey, who never, ever, ever gives up. He's disenchanted with Sauber. He doesn't like the car. He's been saying he's unhappy with it all through practice and qualifying here in Italy. But he still charges on, as does Schumacher. There he is. And the gap now is 3.8 seconds on lap 50 out of 53.
I think that's Zanardi, that particular one, isn't it? But this is Coulthard ever closer. Oh, David going across the escape road one more time. And you can hear them just fighting to get enough gear changes done. The braking distance is so short there. and that's as close as he's going to get. You do tend to lose a bit of front downforce, and he's having a nibble up the inside look, and to pick your braking point when you're so close behind another car and watching him is very, very difficult, and just snatches a wheel as he turns the steering wheel, and the weight transfers across, unloads the inside tyre, and it says, no thank you, I've not got enough grip.
You're right, it was Zanardi and Eddie Irvine in respectively 7th and 6th places. So 1 Jordan in the points, 1 Williams in the points, 2 Ferraris in the points, 1 Stewart and 1 McLaren. This race is turning out far, far better for Ferrari than they could ever have hoped, which just again goes to show that in Formula One you must never, ever give up. Keep fighting to the last turn of the wheel on the last lap, and anything can happen. So Frentzen now is on his 51st lap. This quiet and amiable German with the highly developed sense of humour and a Spanish mother, incidentally, looks as though he's going to bring another victory for Jordan.
Well, the main German star, the man who normally tops the bill for Germany, is, of course, still resting his broken leg, Michael Schumacher, but bringing in their other players. 2 Germans leading this race, Frentzen first and Ralf Schumacher second.
With a Finn, Mika Salo replacing the man he detests so much, Mika Häkkinen. There's no love lost between the 2 Finns, and Salo is in 3rd position. No change still behind them. And can Eddie Irvine just hang on for that 1 World Championship point? This must be matching Mika Häkkinen's worst possible scenario. That's Villeneuve.
And what happens there is you try to run as much rear brake balance as you can get away with to save the wear on the front, and also to prevent a lot of this locking up that we've seen. But that can tend to snatch the rear wheels, especially as you pull down the gearbox, going particularly 3rd to 2nd, a big rev drop, and that could well be what happened to Mika Häkkinen. I'm aching to find out if he had a technical failure just as he turned into that corner, or if he made a mistake. If he made a mistake, why didn't he bury the throttle pedal and just keep the tyres from spinning and rejoin the race?
Well, I'll pass on that question, and I'll tell you who the 11 retirements are out of the 22 starters, with Frentzen on his last lap but 1. The retirements in order of retiring are Marc Genet in the Minardi, Fisichella, Deniz, Wurz, Badeur, Zonta, Trulli, Mika Häkkinen, De La Rosa, Takagi, Johnny Herbert, Panis is still running and is 11th out of the 11 runners that are going. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is on his last lap but 1 now, and yes, Schumacher is continuing to close, but yes, as I said, I'm sure that Frentzen is pacing himself. 4 seconds nearly, with just a lap to go after this one, is a very comfortable lead and all he needs.
Barrichello is going to be pleased to see the checkered flag, and Coulthard's going to be very, very frustrated. He needed to make more than 2 points with Häkkinen off the racetrack, so not been a great day for DC. Barrichello, I think, a storming performance from his grid position. I think Stewart are going to be pretty happy with that, but of course Johnny Herbert already out of the race. We don't know why he stopped out on the track, so another failure it would appear for Herbert. We haven't seen him spinning off or hitting anybody.
Well, at the present moment, Frentzen is 6 points behind Coulthard in the championship. Frentzen in 4th place, Coulthard in 3rd. Frentzen is currently on 10 points to Coulthard's 5th. So Frentzen is going to move ahead to 3rd in the championship if he can just win this race.
And do you, that may well make Damon Hill think he really doesn't need to go to the other races.
Exactly.
And Coulthard closer than ever into the braking zone, not close enough to have a go. And well, I don't think he's going to have any chances now. If he can get a good slingshot out of the first chicane and get a run on Barrichello, his last chance, I believe, is now down into the 2nd chicane. He's not particularly close. He'll get a bit of slipstream from there. Barrichello tends to take a different line. DC is now or never, I think, because I don't think there's enough of a braking zone into Ascari to make any kind of move stick. Coulthard on the throttle hard, back end snaking around. Barrichello has the situation under control.
And Heinz-Harald Frentzen has got the situation under control because he is on his last lap. He is some 18 seconds ahead of these two, and here he is, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, coming down to the Parabolica for the last time with the quite magnificent Ralf Schumacher tight up behind him, just 3 seconds behind, notwithstanding the fact he has a much less powerful engine. But Heinz-Harald Frentzen wins at Monza in Italy. 10 World Championship points, another magnificent victory for Jordan, and there is the ecstatic Eddie Jordan and Paul Stoddart in the Jordan pit area. So Salo is third for Ferrari. Barrichello and Coulthard are coming through. That's how close they are for fourth and fifth. And we just have to get Eddie Irvine home now to confirm, and he's home. And Irvine and Hakkinen tie for the lead in the Constructors'
Circuit just to prove everyone we can do it. And you can't get much faster than Monza.
And there are Zanardi and Irvine touring in. But here are the results of this quite incredible Italian Grand Prix, which is quite different to what we expected, but Louise has got Eddie Jordan.
Eddie, another brilliant drive from Heinz-Harald Frentzen, another win. Does the pleasure get any less?
Oh, you know, we just wanted to win on a dry track the last couple of races, both Magny-Cours and Spa, and people were saying, oh, well, we're wet weather people like the Irish, I suppose. But, you know, this was quite special. We were on the front row of the grid, we attacked this, we had a very good test here, and I had a very good feeling all the way through that we could manage it. A little bit of lady luck, but we drove a splendid race all the way through. I mean, Frentzen, he's a real star of 99, fantastic.
That third in the Constructors' Championship has got to be looking pretty safe now, hasn't it?
Well, you know, you can't really... What can you say? Ralph pushed us all the way when we least expected it. He's becoming stronger and stronger. The Williams and Jordan are going to have a big fight before the end of the season's out. There's only 3 more races, but we're on our guard.
Well done, EJ.
Well, I'm flying back to England with the Jordan team in a charter special flight tonight. It's going to be a wonderful flight, I'm sure, because now Mika Hakkinen and Eddie Irvine are tying at the top of the Drivers' Championship with 60 points and 3 races to go. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, after his magnificent victory, has leapt ahead of David Coulthard into 3rd place, and he's 2 points ahead of the Scotsman, who's down to 4th position. Believe it or not, Michael Schumacher is still about the place in 5th position, and Ralf Schumacher, his brother, is only 2 points behind them. As ever, tradition demands that there is a course invasion in Italy at Monza, and the Tifosi, who are Ferrari fanatics, have actually got something to be pleased about, because they've got Mika Salo, who's driven out of his skin for that 3rd position, his 2nd highest position ever in his Grand Prix career, and Eddie Irvine in 6th position, both Ferraris home.
I'm not sure how happy Irv will really be, because he finished a full 27 seconds behind Frentzen, and we think Hakkinen would have been ahead of that had he not have fallen off the road for whatever reason. So 1 point for Irv. He does move into equal back for the 3rd time this season, although by now it's equal Hakkinen into the lead of the World Championship. I think he may feel, he's going to say, well, 1 point was good because we had a terrible car, but I think he will be disappointed with just a single point.
Yeah, but to change the saying slightly, he who lives to fight and pray lives to fight another day, and Eddie has done far better, I think, than he could reasonably have expected here to get a World Championship point, and he's still got those improvements he's talked about coming along for Ferrari for the last 3 races at the Nürburgring, then in Malaysia, and then in Japan. It is going down to the wire.
And Salo on the podium for Ferrari at Monza.
Yes, I know, and he richly deserves to be, this enormously likeable young Finn who's just hung on, and there is Frentzen. Take your head off, Heinz-Harald. Let's have a look at your happy face as he goes over to meet and greet his Jordan mechanics and team members.
3rd Grand Prix victory, of course, for Heinz-Harald Frentzen, but the image of the race, for me, this is a great image, but the image of the race, and probably even the season, was Hakkinen in the bushes and trees, apparently crying his eyes out.
Well, now let's talk about the Constructors' Championship. McLaren still leaded, of course, but instead of being 9 points ahead of Ferrari, they're now 6 points ahead of Ferrari. Jordan, I don't see that they can possibly be beaten beaten in the Constructors' Championship for third place. Well, they can be mathematically, but it's going to be very difficult indeed. Williams in fourth position, Stewart in fifth, and Benetton in sixth position. Williams are just 27 points behind Jordan, and I'm not going to try all the mathematics, but if Williams finished first and second in all the other races, which they won't do, they could move ahead of Jordan, well, but I don't think it's going to happen.
That's a significant thing, of course, with the Constructors' Championship, is both cars can score points, so there's a potential 16 points for a team every weekend, whereas for an individual driver, the maximum, of course, is just 10.
Well, I hope you've all enjoyed the Italian Grand Prix as much as I have, and I'm sure Martin has. I think it's been an absolute cracker, because we've seen again how dramatically in the flickering of an eyelid things can change. And of course, psychologically, Mika Häkkinen is going to be in a very delicate state from now on.
It's still curious to see Häkkinen lose a car so easily when he appeared to be so under control. When we were waiting for the replay of that, we just saw the end of it. Initially, when it first happened live, I was expecting to see next time round a cloud of smoke or some kind of drama on the way in. He just simply turned into the corner and the back end came around, and McLarens at the moment just don't do that.
And here are the heroes, which include Eddie Jordan. There is the Jordan team. And here is the German national anthem for Heinz-Harald Frentzen. The German national anthem for Ralf Schumacher, of course, as well as Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and the Irish national anthem for the Jordan team. Well done, Eddie. His Excellency, the Ambassador for Tourism there, Mr. Edmund Jordan, in tears. That's the second lot of tears we've seen in Italy, both for very good but for very different reasons. His team has won again, and a fabulous race to win, as Heinz-Harald Frentzen raises the winner's trophy, and the second driver gets his from Mr. Petrucci, who is the Italian Olympic Committee president. And then
to the second place driver, Ralf Schumacher.
There's Schumacher getting the second prize, and Mika Salo for Ferrari has got 4 well-earned World Championship points and a trophy to take home to his cabinet either in Chelsea or Helsinki. He's got 2 homes. And the prancing horse can still prance proudly at Monza, even although it's been a comparatively disappointing race for the Maranello team. They are still there in the fight for the Constructors' Championship.
Well, what a race that was. Still to come, the view.